What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Jeremy coming to you with another video, and today we have our DCEU fanboy, Uche. What's up, Uche?
What's going on, geeks and gamers?
Talk to your ass about your
let's get it on.
I got
a lot to talk about today.
Spider-Verse and all that shit. All right, so we got some big news in the world of comic books, and Uche and I were kind of having a little meeting about some of the things we're going to do moving forward. We're like, hey, let's turn the camera on and let's talk about this MCU stuff going on. You know,
oh yeah.
How can DC maybe capitalize off of it? So obviously, Spider-Man, as of the time of this recording, because I do feel like they're going to work something out. But at the time of this recording, Spider-Man is no longer connected to the MCU. Sony and Disney had an agreement. Disney and Sony could not finalize their agreement. So now Spider-Man, who is, in my opinion, and in most people's opinions, the top Marvel character there is. I think the only person that you can argue is on his level overall is Wolverine, but Spider-Man is the top guy. Now in the movies, Iron Man is the top guy, but we don't have Iron Man anymore. So Spider-Man is the top of the mountain for the MCU, and they no longer have him now. So what are your thoughts on the MCU as a whole, Uche? And then we'll kind of move into a bigger discussion. So where are you at with the MCU, and then how do you feel about this news?
Well, you know, right now with the MCU, I feel like they're kind of in a transition. Like they're moving away from the more traditional hero tropes and arcs that we're used to. And they're kind of pushing more of a, shall I say, diverse platform. I mean, I honestly feel like, and I know you feel the same way, they're kind of forcing it. They're really kind of putting a little bit too much emphasis on, you know, forcing some kind of diversity into their films. Yep. And I think it will work against them in the long run because, you know, right now we're sitting at a little bit of a pause in the comic book movie genre. And I think next year actually ushers in the next era of comic book movies. You've got Wonder Woman 1984. You've got Black Widow. You've got a number of movies that are coming out on both sides for both companies that are going to be, you know, films that kind of stand on their own and aren't so much needing to have a movie that came out before it or after it to kind of circle its arc and bring it full circle was what I really mean to say. But Marvel, I think they're just they're kind of doing a little bit of pandering, and when you pander, you serve the purpose. It really works against your own interests. And Kevin Feige is a mastermind. He's a genius. We know that he has done a wonderful job with the MCU thus far. But I think this year we've begun to see the chips in the armor of the MCU with movies like Captain Marvel, which I didn't even go watch. And I've seen a lot of the MCU movies, but Captain Marvel was one that I had zero interest in seeing. Part of the reason why I didn't want to see it is because there was too much being kind of pushed in my face about her being a woman. And I mean, yes, she's a woman. We know that. You don't have to plaster it everywhere. You don't have to continue to talk about it and emphasize it to the point where it's kind of off-putting for some people. And, you know, you look at a movie like Wonder Woman and you look at how much fanfare that film has received. You look at how well people, you know, took that movie. It really did it elegantly in the way that it showed the strengths of Diana. They didn't need to say any kind of catchy phrase or have any kind of strong female moment, so to say, like the kind you see in, you know, Endgame, for lack of a better example. You didn't need to actually say, I'm a woman and I'm gonna do what I want. Right. You know, she's Wonder Woman. She threw a tank across the room. She jumped through a bell tower.
Movie. It was a great movie.
It was a great movie, and not only was it great from in respect to, you know, showing the strengths of Diana and respecting her character and giving her that legitimate voice, but her co-stars were also just as relevant. You know, they didn't dumb down any of the characters in that movie to kind of raise her above them. They kept everybody on an even field. But at the end of the day, we understood that Wonder Woman was a woman of destiny.
Let me interrupt you real quick, because that's a great point you make, and I always make this point. Look, me and you might disagree on Snyder's vision, and we do, and we can talk about that later. But I've always talked about this with Wonder Woman. She's amazing. She's an amazing character, and Gal Gadot did a great job. But one of the reasons that you were able to appreciate that is because they didn't dumb down Steve Trevor. They didn't dumb down Chris Pine's character, because that actually made you appreciate her more, because he was a heroic guy and he was a respectable guy and he was a man's man. He wasn't a superhero. He was just a man's man. He was a respectable guy. He was a good guy. But then when it was time for Wonder Woman to be Wonder Woman, you were like, holy hell.
Here she comes.
And she was a badass.
When he sacrificed himself towards the end of the movie, you could see how that affected Diana. His bravery, his stepping up to the plate and doing something that needed to be done, kind of it sparked her to, go up to that next level and take on Ares on a more direct, physical, God versus God matchup, rather than allow him to keep her pinned down, allow him to get the upper hand. She, his strength became her strength, and that's something that the story brought to the forefront. It wasn't something that they needed to necessarily tell us or put in our face. It was just an organic reaction, something that was more elegantly intertwined with the story. You know what I mean? And I mean,
yeah. Well, see, that's the thing you're talking about. Like with Marvel, like we're talking about their female characters because they have built the narrative around them and the identity politics around them.
Exactly.
Talking about now, and again, elephant in the room. I understand that there's a problem with Batwoman, they're doing that. But we're talking about the cinematic universe right now. With those characters, with DC, for all my problems I have with the DCEU, the female characters, I have no problem with them at all, because they are treated respectfully. They're treated like, hey, we have confidence in our writing of these characters, so we don't feel that we have to sit there and tell you, hey, that's a woman, and you have to like that. You have to respect her. No, we just know that we're confident in the actress that we have put in these roles, and we're confident in the writing that we've put behind it, and it shows on the screen. But the MCU, to your point, they're just moving into this identity politics stuff, and again, I just don't understand it, man. Like, okay, so when me and you met, okay, you emailed me, okay, and I'm a normal person, because most of us are normal people. So when you reached out to me, obviously you being a former NFL football player was very, I was like, oh, okay, cool, this could be good, but I don't really care if you're an NFL player if you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I drove to Atlanta. I'm like, I want to meet this guy. I want to see what this guy's like in person. Me and you sitting there, we're talking, we're bullshitting. We got ran out of the mall because we were there until it closed, and then we went to a bar, and then we're bullshitting at the bar arguing about Zack Snyder's DCEU, and I'm like, I need to hang out with this dude. This dude needs to be on my team. At no point was I going, I need to get a black man on my team so I can have representation. Like, no, it's all about having a qualified person. And it's not like you were going, oh, I need to link up with a white guy so we can have. No, that's not what normal people do. Normal people look at people as individuals, which is what we've
And
done.
you're right, 100%. And it really goes vice versa for me as well. Like, I let your character, paint the picture of who I should view you as, and it didn't really matter. I knew that I knew kind of where you were in a lot of the videos that I've watched. I kind of knew where you were on certain things, but that didn't matter to me because I've got plenty of friends who were kind of in that same area that you are, in terms of not really being up with all the social pandering, all the people being offended over every little thing that comes across their plate. I mean, for me, I feel like anybody who is worth their salt isn't going to be afraid of telling you what they think and what they believe in. And when you look at what's going on with the MCU, people wonder why when I say this, but I kind of go back to Black Panther, and I think Black Panther, I understand what it meant for representation. It was an all-black cast for the most part, and it was a movie that was based around a fictitious African nation. But to us people who, you know, me myself, I'm African, like I'm Nigerian.
Yeah, truly now.
To me,
You know,
yeah, truly African. You know, to me, it's a little cringe. It was a little cringe being in that movie theater and seeing that this, you know, superhero movie in Africa is what it is. That's what it took for people to come out and acknowledge and want to respect and appreciate African culture. I mean, and I said that even to black folks. I was like, look, as an African, to me, it's a little bit awkward to see you wearing African attire, because before Black Panther, you didn't care about Africa. Before Black Panther, you didn't give two shits about Africa. You know, and matter of fact, African booty scratcher was the thing that y'all came up with. But, you know, now Black Panther's out and it's cool to be African. It's cool to want to be part of Africa's circle. But I grew up in that. My family is from Africa. My parents came to this country from Africa, and that's our culture, you know, from the core. So I see it from that perspective. I can tell when something's being forced.
I got called a Klan member because I gave Black Panther an 8 out of 10. I ain't bullshitting you.
Dude, I give Black Panther a 7, dude. I didn't think it was a great movie. I thought it was average. I thought it was an average movie.
You told me this the night we met. You told me
this. Yes, dude. And I, you know, and I never really got to tell anybody that, because I mean, I don't hang out with people and talk about movies with them all the time, but people who love movies like me, and we sit and talk, and if, you know, that kind of thing comes up, the first thing I tell people is that I thought it was average. I didn't think it was a great movie. I thought Killmonger is sorely overhyped as a villain. I didn't think he was that layered at all. To be honest, when we talk about layered villains, the Joker in The Dark Knight is a layered villain.
The GOAT.
That's a villain that keeps you in the dark about everything surrounding his surrounding his being. It's a mystery. 3 different stories about his origin.
Yep, we don't know. We don't even know what it is.
And we don't even know which one is the right one. We don't even know if any of them are real. And Killmonger was a embittered, you know, lost soul from, you know, the Wakanda nation. Sure, his blood is Wakandan, but there was not much to him outside of, you know, his origins. There wasn't his motives were not really that complex or that layered at all. They were pretty straightforward. I want to get the guns so that we can do to them what they did to us. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I didn't think that was something.
By the numbers.
Paint by the numbers, dude. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? This is not some revolutionary character. It's just not. And the movie itself, while it's very cool to see a black superhero, fully encompassed black superhero film, sure. But did they really change anything that much as far as representation goes in Hollywood? No. I would say that Get Out was Get Out had more of an impact towards representation than Black Panther did, because Jordan Peele actually got critical recognition on an Oscar level that didn't need to be promoted to get him an Oscar win. Black Panther was a manufactured Oscar nomination. That was a manufactured nomination. That was not an organic nomination.
Very well put.
Because of the merits of the movie. Because the movie didn't get nominated in anything else in terms of screenplays, in terms of directing. It was just the movie that got nominated. So that just kind of confirms that it was something that was pushed on to the Academy rather than something the Academy embraced fully and said, you know what, this is an amazing movie.
That's a good point. And I liked Get Out. I didn't love it. I liked it. Towards the end, it kind of, and I understood the whole point of it. Maybe, and I need to watch, sometimes I need to watch movies a second time to kind of fully grasp, you know, and I think a lot of people need to do that. It went so far off of like so far, like I knew the direction it was going in, you know, towards the middle of it, but like it got way out there. And again, that's cool. But again, I enjoyed the movie. But
it had a little bit of that Key and Peele in the third act, a little bit of that over the top Key and Peele, which when he ran up on him, when he ran up on the guy with the what was it, like the moose horn or something like that? It was hilarious because he just ran up on him with like no remorse whatsoever. Just
no, but it was, and I think you make a good point though for this whole representation thing or whatever. They just put so much into Black Panther, and my whole thing was like, remember Blade? Remember Wesley
Dude,
Snipes?
what? That was a movie.
Yes.
That was a Blade was, when you want to talk about representation, Wesley Snipes is somebody who has to be brought into that kind of conversation.
Yes, because everybody can connect to that. Like, and I'm not saying everybody can't connect to Black Panther, but Black Panther is put in such a box that they want to try to formulate it in a certain way. Whereas Wesley Snipes, like, that's the type of character. Now, again, I know it was a rated R movie and I get all of that, but I'm just saying, like, that character, like, that's like me when I was a kid when Michael Jordan was my hero. Okay, because he transcended anything. Not that race was at the forefront of my thoughts when I was a kid, because it wasn't, because we didn't live in woke 2019.
Of course,
So when I looked at Michael Jordan as my hero, I was never like, can I worship a black man? Of course I could. Because I was making fun of Larry Bird in his short ass shorts. I didn't give a shit. I wasn't there going, I got to cheer for Larry Bird because he's white. Fuck that. He looks goofy. He's got short shorts. Now, Bird's a legend, by the way. No disrespect to Larry Legend.
Bird's a legend,
He's a legend. But as a kid, I was just looking at it like Jordan was cool.
I want to be like Mike.
Exactly.
That's how everybody was.
So with Wesley Snipes, now again, excluding the fact that it was a rated R film, and I get that, but if you're like a teenager, 13, 14 years old, you're watching that movie, Wesley Snipes transcends. Like, that is an amazing character that you don't have to be a certain race or whatever. Like, that character can relate. You can relate to anything with that character. Amazing character.
Absolutely. And if you want to even if you're wanting to take it to the representation circle, Wesley Snipes was the first black action hero.
Yes.
Wesley Snipes, Passenger 57.
Oh, Passenger 57.
You know what I mean? Come on, man. Like, Wesley Snipes was that dude for the whole first 8-9 years of the 90s. He was that guy. Art of War. What?
Yeah.
Come on.
Then he made Tu Wong Fu. I'm like, what are you doing, Wesley? What are you doing?
You know, everybody has their slip ups every now and again. But getting back to the MCU and, well, you know, representation in that respect, Blade holds a special place in most every comic book movie fan's heart.
Yeah,
because
regardless of race.
It was an unapologetic, straight to the core comic book, gritty. It was one of the first gritty, violent, you know, completely.
It was the Dark Knight before the Dark Knight. Exactly.
It was one of those movies where you're like, man, if they can make, movies like this where you can actually have these heroes who go through these, real challenges, and there's real stakes at the end of the movie that, really, put the hero in a kind of a conundrum to try and help those and save those that they care about. It's something that people would then see manifest itself again with the Dark Knight trilogy. But with the MCU as it is today, were we ever in doubt that, the day was going to be saved after Infinity War? Were we ever in doubt that Civil War was going to, do we ever feel like it was going to end the way it truly ended? It ended in the comic book, because in the comic book, something else happened at the end of that movie.
Different, yes, totally.
You know what I mean? Or at the end of the comic. But I think that the lack of gravitas, the lack of real stakes in the MCU has always been something that rubbed me the wrong way. And now, when you're moving into this new era that they're about to take on, I feel like there's going to be a lot of cringe kind of feelings I get when I think about all of the things that they're trying to push forward with in the MCU. Yeah. And I think it's an opportunity for the DCEU to capitalize by kind of returning to those darker roots that they have. If you think about, or if you're well versed in a lot of DC's best comic book stories, they're pretty dark stories. Flashpoint is a dark story. You know what I mean? And for me, one of the brands of DC that I really looked at and said, man, if DC really wants to close the gap with the MCU come next year and come the next 5-6 years, they should look into their Elseworlds catalog. Kingdom Come is one of the greatest comic book stories ever told, and it is a dark, cautionary tale
Did you see that picture of Reeves' Kingdom Come Superman?
Yeah, I did. The
Holy
one where he
crap,
has,
dude.
yeah, it looks, dude.
I'm gonna
Kingdom
put
Come.
I'm gonna put that image, overlay that image during this because I'd never seen it before. Ethan Van Sciver actually tweeted it out, and I was like, "Holy shit!" So
Dude,
my
yeah.
bad, I didn't mean to get you off. So, but
No,
you
no,
brought
no, you're good, man. But yeah, Kingdom Come is a story. I mean, me and my brother were so. My brother really was one that got me into comics, and he when King there were two comic book storylines that really that for me and my brother, these were storylines that we hold dear to our hearts to this day. One was the death of Superman. That was what, 1991 or 1993, one of those years. Death of
it was
Superman.
right around the time with Nightfall with
Yeah.
Batman. They were in the same
Nightfall
kind of
came like
ballpark.
a year or two later after that.
Yeah, I think it's 93 and Nightfall was 94 because I was heavily into both of those series.
Yeah, yeah. And then Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come was in 96. And, Alex Ross, obviously a legend in comic books, unbelievable artist, and Mark Waid, unbelievable writer. These guys built a story around a future where heroes had lost their way, a future where the old guard where humans turned their backs on the old guard, and the children of the old guard were the ones who became the standard, the bearers of that that position as guardians over the human race. And they were negligent. They were unpredictable. There was such a blurred line between what a hero and a villain was that it began to cost a ton of lives. And I mean, without going deep into the story, millions of people had to die before the old guard of heroes came out of the shadows to try and reassert control. And even in trying to reassert control, they came they used an approach that didn't work because it was actually counterproductive in and of itself. And it's complex because this is a 4-issue, epic, and each issue is kind of it's framed within the perspective of the Bible, of Revelations. There's a lot of biblical references that are used in Kingdom Come, and again, these are just pieces of what makes the story so special. I think if Warner Brothers started looking into getting involved more in line with the Elseworlds brand, kind of in the same way that Todd Phillips is working with the Joker, where it's a story that's completely outside of the DCEU, stands on its own, and it presents more of a what-if scenario, more of a alternative scenario with the Joker character, somebody who, obviously they fall into the role of Joker over a period of time, but I think it gives a more fresh take. It kind of need there's a need a little bit for a different take on superhero movies. I feel like Marvel had such a formulaic process that it's kind of grown a bit stale, and I don't see them really moving away from the process itself, moving away from how they build their movies, because there's still going to be all interconnected, and they're still going
Which
to.
I hate.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice when it started.
But that's where the stakes started falling apart, because every movie was a setup for the next movie, was a setup for the next movie, was a setup, and then every movie had to tie in so they could all bring us to the next Avengers movie.
Except for Captain Marvel.
Yeah, exactly.
They lied to us about Captain Marvel.
I ain't seen it. And I
haven't seen it.
We know we know where it ties.
We know that.
Yes.
No, it doesn't really tie into Infinity War or Endgame.
Right. Completely forced. Somebody said that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. There's a rumor going around that I make 200 Captain Marvel videos for the channel. Because I did. Because I got views. And Death Superman, it was 93. And again, I don't want to take us too far off track, but I do want to argue with you about why Snyder's Death of Superman is garbage because of the comics and how great it was in the comics. But we can do that another time. We can do that another time.
I won't even argue against that, because when it happened in the theater, I was kind of like, that wasn't necessary.
Okay. Damn it. You're a fair Snyder fan then. All right.
I am fair, dude. I mean, Batman versus Superman, I love it. I love Batman versus Superman because of the grandiose of it, the way that Luthor tries to take on Kal-El by using Bruce against him, and the whole thing is he's trying to make a point that you are not a god, that you are not, what they think you are, and even if I have to turn another hero against you, I'm going to prove that you do have flaws, and you do, and when you have to get your hands dirty, you will get your hands dirty. And Doomsday for me I feel like that was probably more of a studio thing than it was a Zack Snyder thing, because it just kind of felt forced. It felt like it came out of nowhere. It wasn't a necessary aspect of if you take Doomsday out of that movie completely, it's still Batman v Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It's still Batman v Superman.
My big problem was because I definitely was a big reader during that era of Superman, Death of Superman, Funeral for a Friend, all the Superman coming back and the return of Superman. And one thing that really kind of it took a lot of it weighed heavily on me was the reaction of the Justice League to Superman and the Funeral for a Friend. How heavy that was for these superheroes to see the superhero, Superman, the greatest superhero in the world, and seeing them absolutely crushed. It's like, man, if he's vulnerable, we're all vulnerable. Like you could feel how scared they were and how emotional they were. And when that happened on screen in Batman v Superman, I felt completely ripped off. I'm like,
it was done in 30 minutes, which just didn't give it the justice that it deserved. Yeah. And not to drag us on, but just to be real quick about this point, the Death of Superman that was an event that you could create an entire trilogy around.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about the last 3 or 4 issues leading up to the Death of Superman, it was literally battle. There was not even a lot of there was not a lot of word. There weren't a lot of words in those comics. It was just a lot of battle, and it was Superman literally battling this creature across the country. The JLA and Superman battling this creature nonstop, 24 hours, round the clock, just fighting. And you could feel that there was something had to give. Something had to give. Superman was starting to tire. This is the first time we're seeing Superman get tired. He's starting to literally question whether he can beat this beast. And when it all reached the climax, you could feel it coming. You were like, oh no, he's starting to lose out. His uniform is torn off his chest.
We knew it was coming, but that's not the point. It's like the storytelling made you feel it within the story. Just because we knew that this was happening, the storytelling.
But when you make it happen in 15 minutes, when it happens in 15 minutes, it doesn't have the same effect. It didn't have the same effect for me. And when again, I hate to even admit it because of how much I loved the concept of the DCEU from Snyder's perspective, but I couldn't argue that was totally I didn't care that much that he died, because I knew he's coming back. Yeah, he'll be back.
Exactly. And even though we knew he was coming back in the comics, the way that they told the story of his death, we knew he was coming back in the comics. We didn't know how. And you remember reading all of those different issues of Superman. You're like, is this him? Is that him? Is this him? And,
is this him? Is that one him?
Yeah, man, there were so many questions. So even if we knew, it's because of the storytelling had us invested in it that we cared. So yes, we knew he was coming back after Batman v Superman. So that's not really the reason we didn't care. It was because the way it was told, it didn't invest us enough to care about the death for the return. It just felt like quick death, quick return. Let's go about it.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I felt like that was probably had more to do with WB than it did with Zack Snyder. Because,
damn Snyder fans, I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
If you know Zack Snyder, then you know that there's probably 6 or 7 different third acts that he had laid out for Batman v Superman.
That's true.
And his movies tend to run long because he likes to be thorough in how things unfold. He doesn't want to really skip over much. And I mean, how many people, when you think about it, when you learned that they cut BVS down by 30 minutes, that should have been the red flag right there, that that there were things that they're trying to get as many showings in as they can in the movie theaters, right? But Snyder's movies, in their fullest and most uninterfered with, usually are very thorough stories, very thoroughly told. And I think that Doomsday was probably something that the studio requested him to put in because they wanted to get to Justice League. They wanted to get an arc going that could kind of usher in the entire universe of characters around Superman, because it all started with Man of Steel. And again, that's a mistake that they made that cost them in the end, because, you have to have your vision and run with that vision and let Marvel do what they're doing. There was no way that DC could have expected that they could have caught up to Marvel in the course of 3 years? It just didn't make any sense. They had just got Man of Steel out the door. They didn't even have, there were no plans for Batman at that point. It really was, Batman was brought in as an afterthought himself, if you really think about it. So Batman was even more, probably had more to do with WB wanting to get as much bang for the volume they were trying to put, to cut down on the volume they're trying to put out to get the most effective movies out there that they could. And they just, they misfired with it. And then, the knee-jerk reaction led to what we all know is history for the rest of it.
Well, and see, this is my big problem with it is, because DC's basically tried to copy the Marvel template is kind of what and they don't need to. They don't need to, because this is part of our bigger discussion. DC has control of all of their characters, and their characters
were far more known than any characters in Marvel. But today, not the case.
Right. Because Batman and Superman are the two most iconic characters in the history of comics. And then Spider-Man belongs in that discussion, I believe.
Spider-Man would too. Well, what? Spider-Man and X-Men were my favorites out of Marvel. Yeah. I mean, the X-Men cartoon, dude, the X-Men cartoon and Batman the Animated Series and the Spider-Man cartoon are the three best comic book cartoons that have ever been made. Yep. Those three. And dude, I used to
Superman the Animated Series is good too, but it's not quite on that level of Batman, but it's up there. But X-Men's top tier. Like, that's the top of the line for me. Good.
Dude, what? That's what made Wolverine a household name, was the X-Men cartoon.
You're 100%. Oh, love it. I love it. Oh,
I really hope that Kevin Feige is able to bring the X-Men over into the MCU. And I'm not saying that they necessarily need to have it in the MCU as a 100% true to the comic book iteration of the X-Men, but you have to get Wolverine right. You have to. He's the heart and soul of the X-Men. You have to get Wolverine right. You have to get Xavier right. You have to get Jean Grey right. Those are three central characters of the entire X-Men world. Everything, all the stories revolve around those. My
favorite character was when I was growing up with X-Men, Archangel. Loved Archangel.
I loved how he was drawn. I loved his colors. I loved his adamantium.
A lot of him, he reminded me of Nemesis Enforcer from G.I. Joe. I don't know if a lot of people are going to know, like, Nemesis Enforcer, especially from the G.I. Joe movie. Just his design he reminded me of Nemesis Enforcer. So, I mean, I was at a young age, but you're right, though. Those are the three characters. They got to get those right. I mean, you look at, it sucks because we have had the perfect – this discussion is just going all over the place, and that's perfectly fine. But we've had the perfect Wolverine over the years, but it took all the way to Logan to get the perfect Wolverine movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what's sad is that Hugh Jackman, even through the terrible movies, nobody ever called for him to be replaced.
Nobody turned on him.
Nobody. And that just shows right there because –
the only hero who stayed hero the entire time.
And super Christopher Reeve, but that was before the internet age. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about the internet. I mean, even through and I like it. I like Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, but nobody else does. But even through that,
it was a lower budget X-Men film, so it didn't have. I think it had a glass ceiling. It just couldn't get its its style to the level that the story was kind of trying to push it towards.
Mhm.
But the Wolverine I thought was good, minus the very last battle. I thought that the Wolverine movie was a very good movie, and then Logan was a classic.
Right. The Wolverine was, to me, I objectively speaking, it definitely was better than X-Men Origins, but I just don't remember much about it. It's so forgettable for me.
Oh, well,
like I remember the bad CG in X-Men Origins. I remember the bad Deadpool. I remember all the bad stuff, so at least it made it memorable.
That Deadpool was like, what? I was like, who is that Deadpool? Doesn't Deadpool wear like a red uniform?
This is what I talk about with like people like non-Star Wars fans that'll sit there and tell you that, oh, there was nothing wrong with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, I'm like, you don't have to
Star Wars?
Right. I'm like, you don't have to like what they did, you can like what they did, but don't tell me that what they did wasn't highly offensive to the character. Now, me, for instance, I don't like Deadpool. I've never liked Deadpool. So I didn't have a problem with what they did with Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine. But from a fan standpoint, I can totally look at it and go, wow, it don't bother me. I could totally see why Deadpool fans effing hate this, because this is highly offensive to Deadpool.
Yeah. Same here. I've never been a Deadpool fan like that, but I know that ain't Deadpool. It's when you can tell that ain't Deadpool. That's like, well, no, that's not even Sabretooth. Sabretooth in X-Men and
first X-Men movie.
The first X-Men movie. That was Sabretooth. That was
actually a better Sabretooth than what we got in Origins.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, it looked a lot like what's his name, Chris Hemsworth. The guy.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, so to close this conversation up, because like I said, we knew it was going to go all over the place, but Marvel's identity politics, I feel like they're going to be having a step back. Losing Spider-Man is going to be a hit for them if that continues to be the case. I still feel like Disney's going to get that worked out one way or the other.
They'll get a deal done. I think they'll get a deal done. I think it got leaked, actually, that this happened. It wasn't not necessarily something that the studios put out there. Somebody leaked it. So, if we're at the beginning of them playing hardball with each other, and I'm sure that, the way I looked at it, I felt like Disney just tried to throw their weight at Sony, and Sony kind of called them on it and was like, yeah, no, we're good. Let's go, Spidey. We're out of here. Yeah. And they'll get back to the table eventually. They'll get a deal done. Spider-Man's being put out there as that next Iron Man style kind of character for the MCU.
Exactly.
So there's no way that Disney is going to gamble billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars by trying to strong-arm Sony into giving them 50% on the profit that they get from the Spider-Man movies.
Yep, you are right about that. So now with DC, I think what DC just needs to do, DC needs to quit reacting to the MCU and just understand we have Batman, we have Superman, we have a phenomenal Wonder Woman now on screen. You've got Jason Momoa's Aquaman, which he might not be the traditional comics Aquaman, but he just made $1.1 billion, and Jason Momoa's a megastar. So you have established Aquaman, who's someone who historically not been a respected character by the general audience. He's always been made fun of. Now you've got one of the coolest guys in Hollywood. You got $1 billion movie. You got Wonder Woman, you've got a phenomenal Wonder Woman on your hands. You still have the rights to Batman and Superman. You've got 4 top-tier characters. Shazam did really well in theaters. I don't know what's going on with Flash.
Shazam did okay. I think Warner Brothers expected a little bit more, but they only put $100 million into the movie, and it ended up doing around $400 million.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to be happy with that. But with superhero movies, $400 million is a failure. That's how a lot of studios see it.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, I think this is with the kind of characters DC has, there should be far more in terms of the critical success that they've had. There should be far more success. And part of that is the studio. Part of that is, that parts of Zack Snyder's vision didn't catch on with the audience. And, you have to be honest with yourself about that. Part of his vision didn't catch on with the audience. Now, it's subjective. Everyone, there are people who will love it, like myself. There are people who don't. But at the end of the day, now that you know where you stand, you have to have great Superman stories. You have to have great Batman stories. Wonder Woman has a great set of movies. The first movie was obviously great, and we're expecting the second one
Yeah.
Everyone's looking forward to 84. It looks like it's going to be dope as hell. And that armor she's wearing looks like the armor she wore in Kingdom Come, which people, I caught on to that recently. But I think that the core characters for DC, if WB can, I just think to myself, get through Birds of Prey. I think Birds of Prey might end up being actually pretty good because of bringing in the director from John Wick to do all the action scenes, to redo all the action scenes, rather. But I think you get through Birds of Prey and you get Wonder Woman out there to kick off their new era of DC films. Well, Joker too. I mean, Joker is going to be its own thing, but you get Wonder Woman out there, and then you need to go back to the roots of DC's cornerstone characters. Superman needs to be brought back to the forefront. It's hard to make a Superman movie. We all know this. It's so hard because you're talking about how do you make a movie about a god that doesn't bore people, that doesn't, that represents Superman for what he is, but at the same time doesn't just allow him to just be the OP character that no matter what happens, he's coming out on top. That's kind of been an issue with Superman. But where's Green Lantern? Tom Cruise, I feel like that role is made for him right now. Green Lantern and Tom Cruise should go hand in hand.
At this age?
Of course.
And look, I love
Hal Jordan is a grizzled veteran Green Lantern.
And I love Tom Cruise, so I got nothing against Tom Cruise at all. So
I think he's perfect for that role. I mean, yeah, Tom Cruise is older, but how old will he be in that movie? 30, 35. I mean, he's going to be younger for the movie. Flash. We still are waiting on a Flash. I mean, I've been holding out on Ezra Miller just simply because I like how much he wants to be the Flash. That for me is enough to sway me to give him the pass to continue being Barry Allen. He wants to be the Flash. Ray Fisher wants to be Cyborg. These guys do love their characters. So I think when actors show you that they love the character, let them be the character. Help them be the character. My
problem with the Flash right now is that, and I watched like the first season and a half of the Flash, but I love Grant Gustin. Is that his name? I love Grant Gustin as the Flash. And it's just weird because I feel like that's a really kind of definitive is the wrong word. I don't want to say he's the definitive Flash, but he's definitely a really good Flash. And so when you have that, you have a really good established Flash on the TV side. Then you go over to the movie side, and is it Ezra Miller? Is that his name?
Ezra Miller. Yeah, on the movie side, it's Ezra Miller.
He's okay, but that just creates complication for the general audience too, because a lot of them look at that and they don't understand everything. But you have such an established, Flash from the TV side. I hear that the Flash series kind of went woke in the later seasons, but I have no idea.
I watched the first 2 seasons of Flash, and I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, okay, you know what? I enjoyed the first season. I enjoyed the second season. I'm okay with leaving this alone now. Same thing with Arrow. With Arrow, I watched the first season and was like, cool. Second season, okay. I think I'm good. I saw the first episode of Supergirl and was like,
dude,
I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna go that way.
Yeah, Young Ripper 59, which I need to introduce you to Young Ripper, but Eric July. But he told me all about that when I had him on, and he sent me a highlight reel of all the moments in that, and I'm like, oh my god, is it really this bad? Because it's really that bad, bro. I'm like, oh my god, because he's like, I just had to force myself to sit through some of this. But anyway, this has been a really good discussion. I think we need to have more of these on the channel like this.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So Uche, you just started up your channel, The Observant Lineman. So tell everybody about that, and we will drop a link below. So tell everybody about your channel.
So The Observant Lineman is right now I'm running mainly on football news, football happenings, but I am putting into motion plans to kind of broaden the scope of the content that I bring out on the channel, mainly because I've got this awesome Mace Windu lightsaber that I've been waiting to kind of bring into one of my videos, and I want to do it the right way because I want to have kind of a Star Wars video. So I'm kind of starting to put the outline together on doing this segment called the Weekend Geek. And the Weekend Geek is going to basically be weekend videos that I do that kind of go through my geek hobbies, the things that I like to do, whether it's video games, Star Wars, movies, whether it's, you know, running around here with this lightsaber and reenacting parts of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. You know, those are things that I like to do. You know, I enjoy my Star Wars prequels, and I love the original movies as well. And, you know, I just want to kind of expand my channel in that respect. So that's coming soon. But yeah, go follow my channel, you know, subscribe to my channel, like my videos. It's not going to be under the Observant Lineman. It's just going to be under my first and last name, Uche Waneri. But I am the Observant Lineman. So yeah, people check that out. And I look forward to bringing more content.
Right on, man. I'll definitely leave a link below, and hopefully, are you at 1,000 subs yet? So
I'm close. I'm right. This is my second week, and I'm right at 800.
Cool. I think we can get you over 1,000 with the Sports Force video that we're about to upload, and then this one, once we get this one up on the channel, I think we can get you over that mark, and that'll be great.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, we got a lot more coming your way. So thanks everybody. For Uche, I've been Jeremy. Have a great day, and we will see you later.
Peace.
Hey everyone, it's Jeremy from geeksandgamers.com, and if you're a fan of Geeks and Gamers, please go to our website, visit our merchandise store. We have t-shirts, hoodies, hats, beanies, tank tops, and in the very near future, we're going to have many more products for you to choose from. So thank you for the support. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you later.